On today's show, the NBA Draft Lottery is Tuesday night this week. Which team or teams stand to gain the most or lose the most from this year's NBA Draft Lottery? What are the best and worst possible outcomes for Victor Wembanyama and teams that could possibly win the number one overall pick in this year's NBA Draft? Scoot Henderson versus Brandon Miller for that second overall pick. It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Next game, how about Nikola Jokic to score more than 26.5 points? What about LeBron James to have more than 7.5 rebounds? Or how about Jimmy Butler to have less than 6.5 assists? Or what about Jason Tatum to have more than 3.5 three-pointers made? So what is Prize Picks? It's daily fantasy sports, but how does it work? Basically, you pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times back on your money on any entry that you submit. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. And PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That's NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA. They've got you covered for all the action over at PrizePicks. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that simple. They're safe. They offer fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. And right now, every day of the NBA playoffs and the finals, one PrizePicks user will win a chance at becoming a millionaire. But you got to download the app to find out how. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Joining us now is the host of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, Rafael Barlowe, who you can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. Just search Locked On NBA Big Board. And Rafael, it's that perfect, wonderful time of year with the NBA Draft Lottery right around the corner. So many storylines, so many narratives surrounding this year's NBA Draft Lottery. The crown jewel of the lottery being Victor Wembanyama, the projected number one overall pick. Let's start there. Which team in your eyes, and this could be one of the top teams, it could be one of the sleeper teams a little bit further down in the lottery, which team is the best landing spot for Wemby, and which team would you maybe be a little bit hesitant about him getting sent to?
Well, I see a Rockets jersey in your background, so is this Locked On NBA or Locked On Rockets?
Hey, I don't have an NBA jersey to swap. First off, Olajuwon is an NBA legend, so his jersey can be up there regardless of what show I'm doing. But there is no Rockets contingent here, so just NBA focus only.
Okay, because I see a Rockets jersey, not an Olajuwon Raptors jersey. So. I think Vic can fit with any of the teams. I mean, he's that talented that you just build around him. I do think that San Antonio probably offers the most clear-cut opportunity for him to be like the guy, the go-to guy. I mean, I guess that's debatable, but I think with Houston, Jalen Green probably feels like it's his team. Jabari feels like it probably could be his team if he had the right, situation. Alperen Sengun probably feels like he's the best player on the team. And there's so I do think that Vic can fit, whether it's on Detroit or Charlotte or Houston or San Antonio. But like I said, I think San Antonio, he'd come in, he'd be the starter from day one on all of those teams. But I think the fit around him would be easy. I think Houston probably has the most talent, but I'm saying that because I really like Sengun. I really like Jalen Green.
You're not just trying to butter me up, are you? Okay, you don't get brownie points on this podcast for gassing up Houston.
What about a Built Bar? But no, I like Sengun a lot. But I do think that Vic is talented enough to where you can get really creative and have like this weird lineup of like Sengun and Vic and Jabari on the floor at the same time, because I think Vic is going to be a floor spacer. But I mean, the length and athleticism that you have around Şengün, and on top of Jalen Green, and so I think he can fit anywhere. I even think that you can play him with Jalen Duren in Detroit. And like I said, at San Antonio, he'd be their center from day one.
And for those, maybe a bit more unfamiliar with what makes Victor Wembanyama such a generational prospect, what is it that makes him so special?
We can start that he's 7'5". I mean, we could probably start from there. He's 7'5". He's athletic. I mean, he's a vertical lob threat that can reach heights that nobody else can get to. It's like a 7'9" wingspan, but you can't necessarily put him in a box as a center. Usually when you think 7'5", you think of back to the basket center. Nah, this guy's like 7'5" with wing skills. I mean, there's videos of him shooting one-leg three-pointers, handling the ball. There was a clip that went viral a few weeks back where he shot a step-back three, missed it, and then got his own tip dunk. Like, you'd have to watch it to believe it. But, I mean, he's special. And I haven't even touched on the defensive end. I think that's where he could probably have the best impact right away. He's skinny. He's going to need to bulk up, but he's a tremendous shot blocker with his length and timing. And he's not a big that you can switch out on the perimeter and take advantage of him in space, because he's coordinated and fluid enough to where he can, match the guard step by step. And if you do beat him off the dribble, he has this massive wingspan that's as long as the Seine River or I-45, whatever. I mean, it's this crazy long wingspan. So if you beat him off the dribble, he can alter your shot. So I mean, he's just an incredible prospect.
So Victor is clear-cut the far and away favorite to go number 1 overall. He's the grand prize of this year's draft lottery. The team that gets the number 1 pick is likely going to take him unless they, do something weird. There's still a lot of really great talent at the top of this year's draft, though. Namely, we got Scoot Henderson, Brandon Miller, 2 incredibly talented prospects in their own right. At this point, is Scoot Henderson a lock to go to whoever gets the number 2 overall pick, or is there a chance he maybe falls down to 3 or maybe even lower than that? Like, which teams might actually pass on Scoot Henderson if they land the number 2 overall pick?
Yeah, I can't see him falling past number 3. I still think the best chance, I think he's more likely to go number 2. But I do think that if Detroit has the number 2 pick, then I mean,
things maybe get a little interesting, right? You got Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey.
And I mean, you get another floor spacer and Brandon Miller, which is something that Detroit didn't have outside of Bojan Bogdanovic. I mean, I know the conventional wisdom is draft the best player available. I still think that's even a little bit debatable. But even if you believe Scoot is the best player available, I think Cade Cunningham is really, really good. I think Jaden Ivey is really good. And I think if you put all 3 of those guys together, even though the NBA is positionless, you don't maximize all of their strengths because you have too many overlapping skill sets. So if I'm Detroit, I'm taking Brandon Miller. If I'm Houston, that's a tough one. If I'm San Antonio, I think I would go with Scoot Henderson. Houston is the one where I think it can really go either way.
I'd be sad to see it go the Brandon Miller route. I'm just going to go ahead and give that answer right now. The Rockets need a point guard. They need a real point guard, and Scoot Henderson, I think he's the truth personally. But when you look at the other teams throughout this lottery, the ones at the top, obviously Houston, San Antonio, Detroit, but which team, or it could be multiple teams in your eyes, have the most riding on the outcome of this year's draft lottery?
That's actually a good question, because I think every team has a lot riding. I think a lot of teams are hoping that they can be a playoff team, at least a play-in team next year. You look at the Thunder, they've shown that you don't have to, rebuild for 4 or 5 years to put together a good team. I mean, the first couple of teams that come to mind is Charlotte, for example. If Charlotte wins the lottery, does Michael Jordan sell the Hornets? Because every foolish mistake that Charlotte or any team has made can be completely covered up if you draft Wembanyama. He can cover up all the mistakes. So I think Charlotte is an example. even Portland, if Portland wins the lottery, even gets a top 3 pick, now they'll have to decide, do we move this pick for some immediate veteran help, or do we just continue to add young guys around Dame? And then if Dame decides that he wants out, then we already kind of have our young core intact. So, like I said, those two come to mind. I mean, I thought about something today, maybe a little crazy. I don't think it's going to happen, but everybody's talking about, well, maybe Dame wants out, but Dame has been pretty adamant about staying and maybe wavered on it a little bit. What if Embiid wants out? What if Embiid decides like,
ooh, yeah, after that disappointing Game 7, it could happen.
Yeah. So what if Embiid decides he wants out? He's been in Philly for, I guess, he got drafted in 14, and then he missed 2 years, but he's never been past the second round. So if Embiid says, hey, I want out, then if Portland gets a top 3 pick, all of a sudden I think that could be an interesting trade partner. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here. I don't think that it will happen at all. But if Portland gets, like I said, a top 3 pick, or even if they go where they're projected at number 5, and if they're trying to win right away, then I could see them moving that pick, and they may be able to get some value there.
Who will ultimately win the NBA draft lottery? Where will Victor Wembanyama get drafted to? You'll have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On NBA Big Board. Rafael, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Anytime, man. I know this is Locked On NBA, but good luck to you on Tuesday.
Oh, appreciate it.
Beret.
I appreciate it.